Welcome to a Channel 2 video of Rocket League where I kind of go into more detail about how I make certain Rocket League modes. This is Fruit Ninja, which will be out tomorrow on the main channel. As you can see, there's already a bunch of fruits flying in the air, and you have to aim your sword or your katana. And this is a pomegranate here, which will spawn in the middle pipe, and you can slice it as much as you can until it falls below the pipe. It's one of those special events that show up. I'll be going into more detail about all the different events and stuff like that, but I thought I'd show you guys a quick little bit of the mode. I can't showcase team plays, but as you can see, there's 11 different pipes at the bottom, which can all spawn different fruits that will fall below, and if you hit a bomb, you'll lose points. As you can see, I just lost a bunch of points. It tracks scores for both teams, and there are special bananas that will show up at some point. Come on, banana, show up. Nope. There's one. Here's one banana. This will turn the flames on, and this will actually make it so every point that you get is doubled. So you can see here I'm at 32, now I'm at 36, 38, 40. Here's another effect here. This is a frozen banana. This one will actually freeze the other team and make their katanas disappear. But since I'm in solo here, you can't see it. Now we should find the last one, the frenzy banana. Here's the last banana right here. So this is a frenzy banana. It has a bunch of arrows on it, and now the spawn rate will be much faster. You can see now it's choosing to throw out a lot more fruits. And I'll go through how I made all of this happen. It is quite a feat, and it's probably one of the projects that I'm most proud of on the channel so far, alongside other things like Among Us and Fall Guys. But this was quite the undertaking, and once you see how the logic works, you'll see why it was an undertaking. It was a lot of work. So I'm going to get into the details of how I made it happen, how I modeled everything, how I brought it into Rocket League and brought it to life. It's actually genuinely a lot of fun to play, and it takes a lot of practice to get really good at controlling the blade from far away, but you get kind of used to it, and I don't know. I'm having a lot of fun with it. I hope you guys enjoy the main video on the main channel, but I thought I would use this channel to sort of show and explain some of my thought process behind the scenes. Let's get into the editor and see what it's all about. So first off, we're going to start with the editor in Blender and how I made the models. It was pretty easy, actually. Now, it's not going to look exactly the same because I had to scale certain things up. You can see the pipes here are just simple circles that I sort of, extruded and made into the pipes. And then I made a curved backboard with the objects here. You can see if I turn on the materials, you can see what it looks like. Pretty basic shapes. I just wanted to get the shape of the room good. And then for the lobby, when you spawn in, I just repeated this like this and brought it back here and made it smaller. That's how I modeled it, and then I basically made all the fruits. They're all individually here. Let me just move them. You can see I just exported them at the center point, which makes them all basically able to be a Rocket League ball. And I just chose as many fruits as I could find and think of, and also that were easily mimicable, as you can see, like oranges and stuff. We got a star fruit. And pear, and then the bananas, there's two different versions because this banana is slightly smaller because this is the regular banana that I use for the ice and the multiplier bananas, the fire ones. And then this one is a double layered banana, as you can see here, because I use the arrow texture on it, which is see-through. So I added a layer on the outside for the arrows, a banana on the inside for the dark brown color. We also have the katana here, which is just a little bit off center because it's attached to the car. So you can see right here, the center of the car is right here, and then the front end of the blade is inside the car. And then it just extends super far, and you actually can see that based on where we kind of are in the level, which is around here, I want to say, I wanted to make sure that when the blade is facing the board, and no matter what angle it takes, let's say it's angled like, I can't even angle it up properly. Like if it's angled up here, I want to make sure it's still relatively easy to understand where the end of the blade is. So basically, I want to use this blade as a reference for where the trigger is going to be, and then I assign the trigger to follow the katana. So moving into the editor here, you can see this is where the cars actually float, and this is the final version. Originally, I had them much further away, but Danny told me that it was a bit difficult to read where the fruit were because they seem pretty small. So I brought it a little bit closer, and it does seem to play out a little bit better. Here you can see this is the lobby room I was talking about, where it is behind the room. This is where the spawns are. So these are the little player spawns where players can spawn. And I make sure that in the world properties, I have map mirroring or spawn mirroring off. So that means that all spawns will only be these 4 spawns. Usually in Rocket League, you have map mirroring on X and Y, which is why when you have one corner kickoff, they spawn on the opposite side. So I got to make sure I turn that off. And then moving over here, we have the lighting. There's actually a spotlight right here, which is projecting onto the screen here. And then I got to do a couple settings to make sure that when the Rocket League balls are on the screen, they actually project shadows and stuff. So that's how that all works. And then as far as the pipes go, this is where it gets a little bit difficult and confusing. There's a whole setup behind the scenes here that is not shown or seen by the players. There's 11 pipes, and there are 11 setups here. So how this works is I want fruit to spawn out of these pipes and fly up on the screen. But the problem with Rocket League balls is that when you spawn a Rocket League ball, there's no way to manipulate the spin of the ball. And that's actually a major issue that I've run into in the past, where for example, I'm going to go over to the crossbows map real quick. The original plan was to have arrows. As you can see, they're actually still down here in the level. I originally wanted to have arrows spawn out of the crossbows instead of the Rocket League balls. But the problem is that based on where the 0 degree rotation is of the arrow, which right now is this pointing way, if I'm facing this way with the crossbow, it'll shoot the arrow as if it's still facing this way no matter what I do. And I couldn't figure out to fix that. And I've talked to Swaggles and Shark and a bunch of other people. We've never figured out a way to manipulate the spawn of the ball based on the crossbow's position. It's very, very confusing. So I have a workaround for it. Basically, I wanted the fruit to spin. I wanted them to have like a bit of animation moving around instead of just floating up like as they were. For example, all these fruit here. I don't want the bomb just doing this. That would be very boring and look very bad. So what I did was I set up a little system out here. So every single one of these little apples here are a spawner that I can use. Well, it's a path node, and you can basically spawn things from it based on its position data. And so I have this be where the ball can spawn, and then I have an assortment of angles the ball can take when it's launched out of here. So what I'm doing is I'm basically taking this spawn here and launching the ball randomly, choosing one of these 8 45-degree angled references, and launching the ball into the ground to give it friction to make the spin start happening. And I'll actually show you in game what I mean by that. So I'm going to start the timer here. Once the countdown starts, I can fly out here, not match admin, change teams. If I go here, there you go. You saw a pomegranate, and now it's spinning. It launched into the ground, gave itself some rotation, and now it's doing some spin. And you can see it just stays kind of spinning the same way, and that's because it launched at the ground at that 45-degree angle. There's also a puck back here. It's very hard to see, but it's right here. And this is for ball cam. And the reason why I'm using a puck is because it doesn't have an aura around the ball, so you won't see like this outline behind the wall. And look, the fruits are starting to go. And you can see them in action. If I come back here, you'll start to see them. Yeah, there's a bomb that just popped in. So they're all kind of spawning in different random spots and then teleporting themselves into the right position after they start spinning. I think it's a really unique and kind of ingenious way to make some moving fruits and have them spin and be a little more interesting. And the reason why they're not flying around the screen and just up and down is because it's very, very important that I track what each of these fruits are doing. I'm sure I could have set up ways to like launch fruits in a trajectory and a path predetermined. That way they're all in the same spot. But I thought this was nice enough, and it's easy enough to track and follow what's going on. So I'm trying to explain everything before I show you the code, because the code gets, it's not really code. It's object-oriented programming or node-based programming. But I'm trying to get the idea across before I jump into the Kismet, it's called. So that's the idea, is it basically spawns randomly in one of these spots, chooses what kind of fruit or bomb or banana it's going to spawn, and then launches it into these, and these triggers down here are used to detect certain things, and I'll explain why that's important in a second. But after that, they teleport down here. These are the points in space here that tell it where to spawn the fruit, and then it launches it up in the Z direction positively. And there's a trigger on each of these that is detecting when an object is going through it, and that is what causes that poof sound, that poof explosion, to spawn at one of these falcons or eagles or whatever this thing is, a hawk maybe or something. I don't know why the point in space is that icon, but it is. But that's basically telling the poof to show up when a ball goes through it. But I also need to make sure that when the ball falls back through it, I don't have another poof go off. There's a couple things that I have to do to make sure that happens properly. And so now I will probably go into the editor. I'm a little bit afraid that it's a little overwhelming. Also, for the flames, there's just an actor here, a little emitter that is those flames that I can toggle on and off on the client side. And there's a whole lot of netcode that's involved in this map. And what netcode is it basically uses the Rocket League chat system to secretly send messages across different clients to agree on what they're seeing. This is the arrows that you see here. The arrows on the wall are just in front here, and they will appear or disappear based on the state of the game. I have all the fruits here that you can see above just so I had a reference of how many there were and what I was using. And these here are the ice spheres that go around the players if they freeze the other team. It's kind of cool. This is the only banana, this ice banana right here, is the only banana that can be sort of used tactically to mess with the other team. The other ones kind of affect everybody, but bananas are worth 3 points and 6 points if the multiplier is on. Bombs also remove 5 points. Let's get into the editor. It's going to be a little overwhelming jumping in here. I will try to explain portions of this editor as we go. Here it is. Yeah, it's a lot. I'm going to go through little bits and pieces of how all of this works. I'm not going to go into like every little detail of every little node. But you can sort of see some repeats of things, and I could have done this in subsequences, but I'm very afraid of global variables because in Kismet, things break very often, and I would rather not worry about it. So I just tried to cram the Kismet space as much as I could, and it lags a little bit, but it's not too bad. Let's start off with down here. So this tracks players. This right here, these boxes, basically tracks when a car is spawned, and then it checks if a player is already listed. If not, assign a new player. And right here it's getting the property of the car the player that spawned and the car, figuring out what team it was, and if it was blue car, then assign blue car 1, 2, 3, 4. Otherwise assign orange car or red car. In this case we just say red because it's shorter to type. Once it does that, then it also attaches a couple things. It attaches, well, first off, it detaches katanas in case is attached to something else already. And then it attaches the katana. So this is interp actor number 6, and these are interp actors because they can interpolate or move based on what the cars are doing or rotations. So you can see here, I select it. This is interp actor number 6. As well as I'm also teleporting the triggers on top of this katana. So these triggers right here have the same center point as the katanas, but they will teleport to the katanas with the same rotation as the katanas, so that way I can detect overlapping with Rocket League balls, which in this case are fruits or bombs. When level loads, it's basically teleporting those triggers constantly every 0.0 seconds or 0.1 seconds to update the position of the katana and the triggers. So that's all of that. Also, when the countdown starts here, this countdown is also getting the position of these guys, these 4 positions here, and constantly setting the position of the players or the cars to these positions while suspended in a 0 gravity volume here. This is a gravity volume, and I've set it to 0, so it has 0 gravity. And I'm also setting the velocity of the cars to 0. So I'm just trying to cover all my bases to make sure there's as little sort of jitteriness as possible. Which is why if you see in the video at some point, you're going to see like when the end game screen happens, cars are like spazzing out because it's disagreeing with where it wants to be on the screen. Anyway, that is tracking the players and which players are what and assigning the katanas. Down here, this is where at the start of every client, when they load in, they are hiding the ice spheres around each player. They are hiding the 2 fire emitters on these braziers here. And it is also hiding the screen here that has the arrows. Basically, all the clients will unhide and hide those based on the states of the game. How do we decide the states of the game? Well, I think I will first start off with how do I get the Rocket League balls to spawn? So this is a node system here that basically gets the information of the map name and file and all that stuff and basically assigns strings that will associate with different Rocket League balls. So if I go in here, I have all the different fruits. that are labeled as such. And when you go in here, they have collisions. As you can see here, I view collision. Here's a sphere collision around the apple. And then that is fed into an archetype of the ball, which I'm saying use that static mesh, which is the apple. I want to use the apple, and I want to give it the material of the apple. So here's the apple material. It's just UV'd a certain way, which UV is basically telling polygons where to get information or data on the material or the texture. So that's what ends up happening. This is what the apple texture looks like wrapped onto the apple. So every fruit is assigned the same way. So I have all of these fruits with a gravity of 1, but the pomegranate I wanted to float a little bit more lofty and a little bit slower because I want to slash the pomegranate a bunch of times. So in here, I've then set the gravity scale to 0.2. And I had to play around with numbers with how much I launched the ball up and stuff. And I kind of just played around with it until I was happy with how it looked. So there's not a whole heck of a lot in this map. There's just like a couple meshes for each of the fruits and the bombs. Don't mind the autosave. And then there's just the level itself with the boards and stuff. And I just found the textures online. Like this one here is just from Fruit Ninja exactly. It's one of the backgrounds. And I used it for this guy right here. It repeats a couple times. So how do I decide how to spawn and when to spawn? Well, I have this system, and it all starts from when the countdown is completed, and it goes in here. And it's checking. And I need to check all the states constantly. So I'm checking, is Frenzy active? If Frenzy is active, I then want to delay differently. I want to delay the amount of firing that's happening or the amount of fruits that are happening differently. So usually when Frenzy is not active, I'm using a random time to delay between 2 to 4 seconds. If Frenzy is active, I want it to be every 1 to 2.5 seconds. That was just arbitrary. That's just what I picked. But you can see that it's waiting one of those 2 times based on the state of Frenzy. If Frenzy is active, then it's faster. First thing I want to do, pomegranates are unique. They are in the middle pipe only. So I wanted to deal with pomegranates separately from the system of spawning regular fruits. So what do? I have flags, or booleans they're called, that are determining the state of all the pipes. So I'm like, oh, is there a fruit currently in pipe 1? Then I want to set pipe 1 to true. So I'm checking pipe 6, and I'm checking if it's true. Then if it is true, I skip over choosing to find a pomegranate because I don't want to spawn another fruit in the middle pipe if there's currently a fruit there. And I want pomegranates to be pretty rare, and I've made all of these choices arbitrarily as well, just to see what felt the best. There's a bunch of variables in this map. You can see pomegranate chances down here. I've made it 4%. And how I do that is I make it 0.04, but then in the checker of like compare float, I am checking a random float from 0 to 1, and if it's less than or equal to 0.04, then it goes up here and it starts setting up the pomegranate. Now, this whole thing right here is a dynamic bomb changer, I want to call it, I guess. So bomb chance originally is 10% at the very beginning of the game, but I kind of wanted it to very similar to how Fruit Ninja is, where bomb chance, the bombs kind of show up more often as the later the game goes on. So what I wanted to do was basically have a max bomb chance, I think of 40%, and if we reach 40%, I don't want the bomb chance to go any higher. So it's first checking if the bomb chance is at or greater than bomb chance, just in case it goes to like 40.01% chance. And if it isn't at max, then I want to add the bomb chance add, which is a variable I set myself, and you can change how fast you want the bombs to get faster. You can see bomb chance add is 0.001, which is 0.1% additional for every fruit that's launched. And so it'll I think this one's set to 25% chance, which I later on changed it to 40 in one of the games for the video. But I think 25% chance felt pretty good. So once I'm doing that, so I've basically chosen, at this point, I've determined, yes, I'm spawning a fruit. I'm spawning a pomegranate. Let's add bomb chance if bomb chance isn't maximized yet. Then, because I am launching a fruit, I now want to make sure that pipe 6 is set to true, which means pipe 6 is being used. Then this is where those 8 different launchers come from. So you can see here those 8 different points in space. I'm using a random switch to choose one of 8 outcomes. And out of those 8 outcomes, I am choosing one of those points in space to assign to the launch object. Then I'm spawning the ball. So I'm choosing to spawn the pomegranate at that 6th pipe, and then I am setting the position of it to that choice of the launch object, and then also setting the velocity at the spawn speed, which I set it around like, I think randomly between 2,000 and like 3,000 units. Doesn't really matter. It basically just changes the speed at which the ball is colliding with the ground, which changes the speed of the rotation based on when it hits the floor. It's also important that I assign what type of fruit this ball is, and I'll explain why later. But I've made sure that pomegranates are type 6. And so what I do is use that to detect what fruit and what kind of effect I want to show up when the fruit is cut. So I let the pomegranate run for 15 seconds, and then it comes back and feeds back into the loop. That's if a pomegranate is chosen. Now, if we've chosen that it's not going to be a pomegranate, we then go and see if Frenzy is active once again, because I want to choose a random number of fruit to spawn in a row from 1 to 4, or if Frenzy is active, go up to 3 to 6 randomly. So 1 to 4 is the standard. It can shoot at 1 or 4 or 2 or 3. Then it goes up to 3 minimum with a max of 6. And then I'm checking, does the spawn amount equal 0 yet? No? Okay, then we go in here and subtract how many spawns are left by 1. But if it is equal to 0, it comes back into the loop. So that's how the two loops kind of close. It'll feed into this system of choosing which fruit. You can see it goes crazy. All of these complete the loop, coming back to the temp spawn here. Each of these is a pipe, by the way, and it's how it's choosing what fruit or bomb to spawn. I'll get into that real quick though. First off, it goes here, and once again, we have chosen, once we've gone here and subtracted 1 by the spawn, we are then doing the same thing as the pomegranate, where we're adding bomb chance until it goes up to the maximum bomb chance. And since now is the best time to just choose a launch direction, we're going to do that now and choose the launch object early on. I ended up just copy and pasting this. I didn't end up using a lot of these. You can see these aren't used, but this middle one, I think, is the one that's used. Let me see. If I right click here, you can see, yeah, these ones are in Kismet. If something is used in Kismet, it'll show. So these aren't actually real. I just kind of left them because I copied and pasted the whole setup. But these are the ones that are being referenced for all launches. So we're now here. We've selected which direction we're going to launch the ball at. Then we're going to choose a pipe. But it's important that I check the state of the pipes after it goes through a random switch here. So it's choosing 1 to 11 different pipes, or 1 to 11 different options. Then what it's going to do is it's going to check, okay, if I chose switch 1, is pipe 1 true? Is there a fruit there? If it is, I don't want to choose 1. So what I do is I delay a little bit, which just adds a little more randomness. And also just gives the system a second to like understand what it's doing. It's important never to have loops that have 0 delay, because it can cause a lot of hitches. So 0.2 seconds go by, and then it feeds itself back into the random loop until it finds a pipe that isn't active yet, and then chooses what pipe what position it's going to spawn from. And those path nodes are based on these path nodes here that we talked about before. So it's choosing one of those to assign the spawn position. You can see all of these are going fed into spawn position. It's choosing what the spawn position will be. And then after, of course, if it was false, now that we are spawning a fruit or bomb there, we have to make sure that the pipe is set to true. Here's where it gets a little bit crazy. Okay, so we'll follow one of these. It's going into here, and it is checking, do we spawn a bomb? First off, let's check if it's a bomb. So we do a random float once again from 0 to 1. And if it's less than or equal to 0.1 or whatever the bomb chance is currently, then it spawns a bomb. So it's going to add a game ball at the spawn position. And then it's going to assign this ball to this spawn position here. And I'm going to make it a bomb based on that string that I was talking about before, where I basically like have a long string that says this is what pertains to that ball archetype, which is bomb. But this is P1 type, which is like, what type of ball is this? I'm spawning a bomb. I want to choose P1 type 1 for bombs. Okay, so that's how I set that. And then I'm basically setting the spawn speed. You can't just set the spawn speed at the velocity here. I have to make sure I assign whatever random number into this first and then set the velocity. And this is what launches the bomb at the floor. If we didn't choose bomb, which means we are greater than the 0.1 or whatever it was, then let's check if it was a banana. So banana chance I think was 6%. I think I made it 6%, so 0.06. So once again, same system. If it's less than or equal to that, go into this random switch. Now, this random switch chooses one of those 3 bananas. Pretty self-explanatory. It just chooses one of the 3. So we either get the banana freeze, you can see here, banana frenzy, or banana malt. And each of these need their own unique identifiers. I've skipped 2 because 2 is going to be the fruit, regular fruit. 3 is freeze, 4 is banana frenzy, and 5 is banana malt. And of course, 6 is pomegranate, but we don't have to deal with that right now. And the same system, basically just assign the launch object, the launch speed, all that stuff. Pretty similar. If it's not a banana, we then go into a random switch of 9 because there's like coconut, melon, watermelon, starfruit, kiwi, apple, orange, peach, pear. But it's the same thing. We're going into each of these and then adding a game ball and then assigning it to ID number 2. I could have assigned ID number 2 right here, by the way. Instead of doing it this way, I just copy pasted it that way because they're all ID 2. So that would have been way more efficient. I just, I was doing things in a certain order, and once I made it, I didn't want to go back and change things because I was already copy and pasting a bunch of stuff. But that's how I assign ID number 2 to all the different fruits. And that's what you see here in all 11 of these clusters. You can kind of see the same shape showing up in several spots. That's how we choose how to spawn things. And like I said, once it chooses that, it comes into here, which there's a fire delay, which is basically just how long until it goes back into that loop, which I can customize. And it does it again until the temp spawn is equal to 0. That's the system for spawning the fruits. Honestly, that was the easiest part of all of this, was just getting the spawn system working. And then how I make sure the balls disappear and stuff is a whole different thing. Next, we're going to go into the triggers that we see in the spawners back here. This one is for clients, and this one is going to basically recognize Rocket League balls because netcode cannot send over object data. It cannot send over, oh, the ball that we just spawned is an apple. We have to recognize the ball in a different way. So what's happening is I'm launching the ball into this trigger and then assigning the P3 ball, for example, pipe 3 ball. I am assigning whatever object hit this trigger as P3 ball. And I'm also opening up this gate for a different situation where these poofs have to happen. So this is where I was talking about I need to make sure I don't have the poofs go off whenever something hits it, because if the ball falls back down, it'll poof again. Whereas that right here, I'm going into this trigger from this pipe here. I am then spawning a poof effects actor at this position here. But the second that I do that, I'm closing the gate, which means that if this trigger's hit again, it won't activate if this gate is closed. It'll only activate again if this is opened by this trigger, which means another ball was spawned in that pipe, which means we already know, based on how I've set everything up, that the pipe will be clear by that point if another ball can spawn. Because as you know, when we went back to that system of choosing when a pipe is active or not, which is way down here, it'll only choose that pipe if the pipe is not active, which means there will be a ball that is already destroyed or has been passed through this to destroy at the bottom. There's another trigger at the bottom of all these that just destroys the ball, sets all of the pipes to false when the ball is destroyed here. You can see here it goes in, it assigns P1 ball to null, and then destroys the ball that was triggered by the trigger, and then sets the pipe to false. And that's the same system for all 11 pipes. Hopefully you're following this so far. I don't know if this is like interesting to see all this behind the scenes, but that's what this vertical pipe or this vertical rectangle here is just destroying the fallen fruits and reassigning pipes. And this whole system up here is assigning different things, like I said before, about like opening gates or setting what the fruit is. So all of the clients can see what kind of ball was hit and keep track of that. And that is important because now that the fruits are up in the air and they're flying around, these triggers that are attached to the katanas need to detect the balls somehow. And that's what this system is here. This system over here is for these big blue and green lines are for each pipe for each katana. So this is the trigger for blue car 1. First off, we check if blue is frozen. If if a car is frozen, it means their katana is invisible and their car is covered in an ice ball. I don't want their katanas to affect fruits when they're frozen. So if the state is frozen, I ignore any interactions that the katana trigger is finding, right? So if it's true, nothing happens. It's completely empty. If it's false, though, and that means the cars are active and their katanas are visible, then I check what kind of ball was found. This is all done by the host, which is already assigning the ball the same way as the clients, but the clients need to know what balls are for a specific reason I will talk about later. But for now, the host needs to know what kind of ball position was found. Let's compare the object. Was the trigger finding the ball in pipe 1? If it was, then we go over here and we then check the type. Is the ball type 1? If it is, then we need to subtract the bomb deduction, which I've set to 5 by default, but you can set it to whatever you want. You can set like bombs are super dangerous and they like take away 20 points. That's why I've made them all global variables that you can mess with, so you can like change how the stakes of the game or whatever. So bombs deduct by whatever you have the bomb deduction variable set to. And so if it is type 1, then I do that. And what happens is I set this value of this string here. I need to send this to netcode, and I'll explain how that works in a second. Whenever it goes through and chooses one of the types, once it finds the type it sends it way over here into this gate, which then sends way over here into netcode. And these things over here tell all the clients, all the people connected to the game, they send a string of like P1 setting is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever it is. It sends a number or a string of whatever you want it to say over. Okay, so we'll keep going through here. If in pipe 1 it sees that the ball type is 2, that means it's a fruit. So then I want to then check if malt is active, which means the multiplier banana is active. If it is active, I want to double the points, which means it's 2 points per fruit. If it's not, then it's just 1. And then I send over the ID 2. If it's number 3, we know that's the freeze banana. Then we need to check the malt once again. And if it's not active, it's 3. If it is active, it's 6. And then send over ID 3. Now it's important here that I send over ID 3, or I send over, and it's going to get a little confusing, I send over ID 6. I'm skipping all the way over to 6. And the ID that I assign for pomegranate, even though it's ball type 6, I'm sending over ID 7. And there's a reason for that. 3 is freeze the orange team. 6 is freeze the blue team. It's important that I assign a freeze for both teams on a different ID, so that way when I communicate to the clients, it hides and unhides specific ice balls and hides specific katanas. So that's why for the blue side, you can see the P1 setting is set to 3, which is why I've also moved this setting over here. You can see I kind of brought this one over from here and brought it over here. So when I copy and pasted this, I could set this to 6 on the other group, which is over here. This is for the orange team. And you can see here I've made them all 6 for this team. I hope that's making sense so far. I know it's a lot. I thought it would be pretty interesting to kind of explain how it's all working. Okay, so let's say it's not a freeze banana. It is a ID number 4. That's malt, I believe. Or is it frenzy? It's one of the two. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter yet. But it is sending the ID number 4, and same thing for ID number 5. The only pipe that is different is pipe number 6. So for each, the blue side and the orange side, on pipe 6 specifically, which we can find here, if it detected the ball was pipe 6, it goes to 2 places. It goes to here and checks. I'm going to have to explain this because I just made this change recently to help fix some things. But these all close themselves after a pipe is found, because that means I don't want any other triggers to interact with this specific line anymore. So every time a pipe ball is found, I need to close the gate off so that the other players can't also like cut the same banana or same fruit. I need to close the gates off so there's no more interactions. So what happens is when pipe 5, for example, is found, it goes in here and closes itself, but it also closes the orange team's pipe 5 position, as you can see here. Pipe 5 is closed. The way I've set it up is that both orange team's triggers go into the same system for orange team finding a ball, and same thing for blue. So there's only one set of logic for blue and one set of logic for orange, but I wanted to make sure that the object that I was detecting was separated into detection that way, because you could have a situation where, unfortunately, the object wasn't overwritten and it thinks the ball is a different ball. It's, whatever, it doesn't matter. So yeah, for pipe 6 specifically, after it checks for pipe 5 or ball type 5, instead of just ending, it checks if it was higher than 5, which is 6, which is the ID of a pomegranate. And once again, it checks if malt is active. If it is, give 2. If not, then it's 1. And then it give the ID to the clients of 7, which is why I said it's kind of confusing, because I had to move pomegranate down a number because of the freeze states. It would have been nice if I set everything up before, realizing that freeze should have been 3 and 4, and then it could have been pomegranate was type 7 the whole time. Whatever, doesn't matter. Once you make a huge amount of this code, or whatever you want to call this, all these nodes, I didn't want to go back and reassign everything, so I just left it that way. But that is how these all work. It's basically doing the exact same thing. It's checking what kind of ball it was, what type it was, and then adding score or negating score accordingly, and then sending to all of the clients saying, hey, a ball at pipe 1 was found and it was ID 3, which means we need to tell the clients to freeze the orange team, which means basically give the orange players a ice ball and give them no katana, etc., etc. And this is where that all happens. So once the ball is detected by a trigger on a katana, it comes in here, for example, on pipe 1, and it's saying, we received information from pipe 1 setting. It's then going to read that information right here, and we are comparing the string. We are comparing it to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And you can see here, for all pipes except for pipe 6, we are only comparing strings 1 to 6. But there's very specifically pipe 6 here that we go in here and we check for number 7. There's a couple weird things that happened, though. For example, just to make sure there's no delays and weird things that happened, I have a trigger here that is closing off until another fruit is found. So whenever a fruit is found, it opens a lot of gates. So for example, on pipe 6, it opens up the gate here for blue team. It opens up the gate over here for orange team. It opens up the gates for detecting fruit explosions as well. I want to make sure it's not constantly going off. Oh, actually, I just realized that's why this might be happening. I'm going to make these delays a little smaller. I think that'll fix the final issue I had. I just had a thought process in my head of why, when I was testing with Danny, some of these fruits might not be exploding on, like, for that reason. When I had no delay on closing, it wasn't setting off the bombs or the explosions for the other clients for some reason. I couldn't figure out why. So I added a delay of 0.1 and it started working. But I wonder if 0.1 is too long, because sometimes the spot will not have opened. Although I don't think so. Thinking about it, but I will change it anyway. I'm not sure. It could also be a limitation of netcode. Each one of these is dealing with a state of the pipe. So I'll go back into this. If it found that the string was 1 at position 1, I want to, this is the important part for all the clients seeing what ball is what, and getting the position of that ball is important. I want to spawn an explosion at the ball that is in pipe 1. There is no way to tell the client what this ball is or where it is unless I did what I did, where the ball goes through a trigger to give it the information of that ball. And the problem is, too, is that when you're dealing with multiplayer, if I just instantly delete the ball, it'll have no reference to what that ball is, and it'll spawn the explosions at 0, 0, 0 in space, like 0x, 0y, 0z. So I want to give all the clients enough time to explode their ball at where that ball is before I delete it. That's why there is a delay of 0.25, just to give enough time for ping to get the information before the ball poofs on their screen. That's why I wanted to assign different values to different balls, because I want an orange explosion for bombs. I want a smaller fruit explosion for regular fruit. I want a freeze ice explosion for freeze. I want a that like bursty kind of thing. I've used it in build mode before for frenzy, and same thing with malt. I think frenzy was just a really big fruit explosion. This one's the kind of blades and stuff. And then finally, if it's ID6, I still need to do the ice explosion the exact same way. And then because of this, and I know a fruit has been cut and destroyed, after it gets destroyed, I then make pipe 1 false again. And that ends the loops. However, there's a couple things I need to do. I need to, for the host, assign certain states. And that's for the frenzy, the malt, and all that stuff, like down here. This is all dealt with by the server, like frenzy active, malt active, etc. So it's going to go over here, and all of these feed into all of these states. So this is like reset or set orange freeze. So for example, I'm going to unhide the ice balls, and I'm going to hide the katanas. These are the katanas here. I'm going to set orange to be frozen, and it's going to start a timer, and I can change how much I want the frozen time to be. So I think right now it's 8 seconds. But if another banana that's ice shows up, I want to be able to have the players cut the banana and then extend the time to 8 seconds again. So what happens is that this, first off, stops this delay, this timer, and then after 0.1 seconds, then does the same thing and feeds it into the timer again. And so after the 8 seconds closes, then it makes orange frozen false again, and then hides and unhides. These are all dealt with. This right here is dealt with by all clients. This happens to all clients, but this is only important for the host because it deals with the states of what's allowed to cut what. Because all of these triggers that deal with cutting fruits are all dealt with by the host. You can see they're not client side. You can see a lot of these things say client side. To assign variables on each client, some things don't work on the client side. So that's why netcode's important. And Shark uses it a lot, and I'm starting to use it, and I can see the benefits. Some things are a little bit more confusing, though. Okay, so that is set orange freeze, set blue freeze for ID6. Same thing, just sets blue frozen. Very similar. For malt, I am setting those fires in those braziers to be unhid or hid. Same system. All of these are pretty much dealt with the exact same way. Frenzy is the same thing as well. I either unhide the arrows on the backboard or I hide them. Finally, what is left to do? I think that's everything. I think I just covered everything. I thought it was a lot, and I didn't have to cover everything like that was in the Kismet because it's just multiples of the exact same situation. But that is how it works. I hope that was interesting. I hope that made a little bit of sense. My brain is on fire because I had to just have PTSD going through all these lines, and there are lines going everywhere. It's a web because everything needs to interact with each other. When you think about it, it's not actually that complicated when you break it down step by step. The problem was doing it and committing to it. This is a project that I started 2 years ago, I think, 2 years ago, and it was daunting, to say the least, so I just never completed it. But I don't know, I got a spark of motivation, and I was like, screw it. I'm going to actually let me do orange team real quick to show the orange blade. Yeah, I said screw it. I just let's just make it happen. Let's just make it happen. And I'm happy I did, because this is some of the most fun, goofy little mini game modes I've made in Rocket League, and the fact that it works so well, I'm happy about. Oh look, pomegranate. These are the mini fruits that explode for the pomegranate. And I didn't explain it in the Kismet, but all the other ones destroy the fruit. This one does not destroy the fruit. This one just has the fruit constantly activate, which is why for pipe 6 I have a special rule that doesn't destroy the ball and allows for points to be accumulated constantly whenever you slice through the fruit. But pretty sick. I'm really happy with how it turned out. I hope you guys enjoyed the main video on the main channel. And if you like seeing behind the scenes on how I make stuff like this in the future, and you want to see more of this, you can see my points going down there, by the way. It might not have went down twice. Weird. Maybe it did. Seems to be working. I don't know. The fact that it even works as well as it does is a miracle. And honestly, I was afraid of these fruit explosions causing a lot of lag. But because they're not interacting with any actual surfaces, it's not lagging, which is nice. They kind of just fall into the abyss and don't... Well, they are bouncing. They're just not causing a lot of lag. I'm surprised. I don't know. It's a mystery. But yeah, very cool. Look at the explosion. It went upward. That was kind of cool. Yeah, very cool. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. And yeah, like I said, let me know if you guys want to see more behind the scenes or just how it was made in the future. Bye-bye.